So most people start with best connected. In other words, connecting with people we know well. Keep hearing from other people or other sources that they need to grow their network as soon as possible. And they move into the direction of most connected without ever becoming most connected. And they land up in a no man's land where they have a few thousand connections thinking they get exposure. But what happened is that they've got very little marginal exposure.
Hi, Daniel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Terry. It's a pleasure to be part of Success in Mind.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to this because I have to admit, straight off the top, I do not use LinkedIn very well. I avoid it. It stresses me out. I go on there very minimally, like just to do what I need to do. And I know I could be using it a lot more effectively. So I'm looking forward to this conversation and how I can use LinkedIn better for myself, but also for the audience to be utilizing LinkedIn. So why don't we dive right into why should we be on LinkedIn? Why should we be using it? What's there for us?
That's an excellent question. And the preliminary question would be, if we own a business, if we're entrepreneurs, are our clients on LinkedIn, Terry, or not? And if you say that your clients are on LinkedIn, then LinkedIn should be part of your marketing mix. It doesn't have to be the only one. But for most entrepreneurs, when we run a simple Google search for their full name, their LinkedIn profile will often top the list. So don't let LinkedIn call the shots. You, Terry, need to own your own presence, just like you do on terryholland.ca.
Okay, sounds good. And so let's say we are business owners. Our clientele is there. Like, for example, I work with business owners, so I know they're there. But find it really boring. Where something like Instagram is so creative and fun to be on, and I don't get that same fix on LinkedIn. So how can we make LinkedIn engaging and enjoyable to be on?
To be told, we don't have to use LinkedIn a lot. Well, the first thing you said was you don't spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. Let's just try to make those minutes count.
Okay.
In other words, consistently using LinkedIn for 10 minutes a week would usually be better than binging LinkedIn. We're looking for clients and then forgetting about it for 6 months. So don't feel bad. It's fine. If you can dedicate on a regular basis 10 minutes a week to your career, then let's make those minutes.
Oh, that's it. Just 10 minutes.
Yes, and should you enjoy it more, then you're absolutely allowed to move into 15 minutes or who knows, 20 minutes. But start with something you feel comfortable and doesn't have to feel a burden. And if you connect with people you know well, it's one great way to see what happens to your network and people who used to work with you and they're going places.
Interesting. So we're starting with 10 minutes a week. And what should we be doing on LinkedIn? How do we focus our time?
Great. So perhaps we could mention 3 layers. The first layer is our profile. The second layer would be our network. And the third is our lead generation or sharing or everything else. If we get back to the business owner, then the 3 simple questions we should ask is, A, who's our ideal reader on LinkedIn?
Okay.
So a business owners say that you could say that you are looking for entrepreneurs or conference organizers or anyone else. And then let's take an example. Say we're speaking of a public speaker or someone who wants to launch a podcast.
Yeah.
Excellent. So if our clients are people who consider launching a podcast, then you, Terry, can help them. Their question should be, if Terry manages to watch and to see my profile, what action would I like Terry to perform? Or you can ask yourself, if I could make people who consider launching podcasts and I'm not sure about the tech side or editing or guesting. So what information should I show them? And what action would I like those people to perform once they go to my profile? And the simple answer would usually be, I would like them to go to my website, terryholland.ca, and then go to podcast, or then go to work with me, or anywhere else. So question number one, who's our ideal reader? And that should usually be our prospects, our clients.
Okay.
Question number two, what action would we like that person to perform after they visit our profile? Usually go to a specific website. Sometimes it would be schedule a discovery call, or download gated content, or subscribe to our newsletter, or download our app, whatever the business owners decide.
Okay.
And the last question would be, are we making it as easy for them as possible to understand quickly what we bring to the table and how we could help them? So if I look at your own profile, I see that you're a keynote speaker. I see that you're a podcast host, and without even diving to or scrolling a lot, I can see that you launch a podcast and you help other people launch their podcast. So here I would start discovering your services and hopefully getting into a call and telling you about my wishes.
And that doesn't seem so scary. That seems doable. And then what about having like a business profile? Because we have our profiles. I know I have my company page up there. I do nothing on it. How do we need to have both? How do we use them? Do we use them differently? Should we have the same content on both, or should they be different?
So I'm not affiliated with LinkedIn. I'll tell you straight as I can.
Perfect.
Set it up and forget about it.
I like that.
In other words, we try to stick to 10 minutes. So yes, you could create a company page, and the single most important benefit you would get is that when people visit your own profile, they would see that Success in Mind or your business has a logo next to it. Like Terry Holland has a logo next to it. But your own profile has close to 3,000 followers. Whereas the grand total number of your page is 4 followers.
Yep.
And this is the proportion for most entrepreneurs and most consultants and most service providers. You don't have to feel bad about it. Some people have less than 4. Some people have 1. So yes, do set it up, but marketing will not happen through our pages. It will happen through our individual profiles, simply because the natural action on LinkedIn is to connect as individual,
right,
and not following company page. You don't have to work hard.
Nice.
Remember, the platform is here to serve us, entrepreneurs, and not the other way around.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, because I was worried you were going to say I need to spend all this time on the business profile. And I was like, I don't even want to spend time on my own profile. Like, okay, so that's manageable. And what if we start doing 10 minutes a week and we're enjoying it and really getting into LinkedIn? Like, what would be the next level if we want to go further into LinkedIn?
So I love the question. The second level I would suggest is networking.
Okay.
And most entrepreneurs and most business owners will have a real life network. Hundreds of people we've collaborated on, worked with during the last 10 or 15 years. And some of those people would be on LinkedIn. So the simplest suggestion would be to try to make our LinkedIn connections resemble our real life connections. In other words, if you, Terry, if you have 300 real life contacts and say 200 are on LinkedIn, then do try to connect with those 200 people, because whenever you run a search and you see that we share a mutual connection, that enables you to reach out to the to the mutual connection and ask them, can you introduce me to that person? Okay, when I look at your profile, I see that Josh Tapp is one mutual connection we have. Say I wanted to reach out to you and I wanted to be a guest on Success in Mind. I could reach out to Josh and say, "Hi, Josh. I noticed that you were connected with Terry Holland. Do you know her well enough to make an introduction?" And if Josh says yes, then you would open that email thanks to Josh's name, not mine.
Right.
And the chances of us communicating and potentially working together would simply be better. So like in real life, you had Bob Berg on a previous episode. I recommend anyone check it out. 295, I think.
I think that's what it is. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Okay, that's interesting. So, I have, like you mentioned, I have a lot of connections on LinkedIn, but most of them I have never interacted with. I don't know them. Is that a bad thing? Like, is that like, should we? And I think that was because when I first got into LinkedIn, the idea was to grow your connections really fast. And at least that was the advice I got, was connect with everyone you can. Does that work against us if we've done that?
It might. So let's start with the good news. Right now, anyone visiting your own profile, the default action would be to follow you.
Okay.
Rather than connect.
Right.
And following comes with no price, because that basically increases the number of people who would see whatever it is that you share on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
But when you run a search, they don't come into play. You don't see Jane Doe that you know nothing about as a mutual connection between you and your ideal prospect. So you made the right choice of either turning on what LinkedIn called creator mode or making the follow the default button. But I could try and ask you one or two questions about the pro and cons of a large network or a trusted one. If that's interesting, we could go into that.
Yes, please.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right. So most people start with best connected. In other words, connecting with people we know well. Mm-hmm. Keep hearing from other people or other sources that they need to grow their network as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. And they move into the direction of most connected without ever becoming most connected. And they land up in a no man's land where they have a few thousand connections thinking they get exposure. But what happened is that they've got very little marginal exposure because maybe 2% will see what we share. Right. And on the other hand, we might have diluted or polluted the quality of our network. Imagine that when I visit your profile, I would see two people. One is a fan of yours, and one is someone that would ask me, "Terry, who?" Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not sure I know her. So they don't have to badmouth you. But if you won't be there to tell me, you know what, speak to Bob. Bob is the go-to person. Yeah. I would see those two names, and I would decide for myself. So try to ask yourself in simple terms, Terry, if you had to pick one for 2027, would you like to be the most connected or the best connected?
Best connected. So, yeah.
Excellent. So best connected means it's even easier because your feed will become more relevant because it's people you've really worked with. It's people you serve. It's people you know. So it makes a lot of sense to many, many people. Don't try to have it both ways. It's impossible.
Okay. So if it's like with my profile and I have all of these connections who I've never interacted with, I don't know them at all, would you suggest cleaning that up or removing connections that you just don't know, or is that a bad idea?
If you decided that you really wanted to become best connected, it would make sense to do this. But I would advise you to really think hard because it takes time to change. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you think that will stick to the best connected in the long term, yes. Or I could share in the show notes a specific resource about this, and people who are interested in it could go and get a more detailed walkthrough of how to handle our connections, including disconnecting. Mm-hmm. And maybe a quick tip we could consider is simply analyzing our network and say out of the maybe 50% of people you have never interacted with, pick one or three that look interesting today and start interacting with them. pick the most interesting people you'd like to speak with, because you say you just booked a public speaking gig, and your topic would be the secret to manifest your future. And the organization that brought you in is an organization you haven't worked before. And you notice that one of your connections, your sleeping connections, shall we call it, is a manager within that organization. So speaking with that person could help you maybe customize your speech or get information that you would not get necessarily from other sources. So just pick one or two or three that are interesting and basically try to move them from virtual or non-existence into real-life connections. That would help you decide whether you want to disconnect, or if you had a gift, then you discover someone who's an interesting person to really know.
Cool. That's such a great idea. When it comes to interacting with people on LinkedIn, what are some best practices that you recommend doing, like for reaching out to someone? Because I know I get hit with spam every day on LinkedIn and constant pitches in my inbox there. So how do we start connecting in an authentic way that really builds that connection?
Really quick suggestion: if we become best connected, then we'll get a lot less spam. This is prevention, if you like. Yes, because we will get messages from people we actually know, and we could basically disregard 95% of incoming invitations if we don't know those people. That's the easiest way to look into it. It doesn't mean you will not get spammed. It means that you won't have that stress, because you know that your circle of trust is made of those people. And if I don't belong to that circle of trust, then it's my responsibility to show you that it's worth reading or worth communicating or worth connecting with. The second thing is a secret weapon called actually reading what the person has written. In other words, read that person's profile and look and see what they share, and that would help you communicate authentically, because you would notice that last month they shared about either moving to a new position or moving from Calgary to Nova Scotia or doing something else. And maybe that you didn't see that in real time, but within minutes you could discover that, and your conversation will be more genuine, if you like. And the third quick tip is to leave LinkedIn. Yes, LinkedIn is great, but the biggest secret is to know when to leave the platform. So say we communicated and you accepted my connection request and you want to take it to the next level. Most people will find it easier to communicate via email, in a business environment at least. And because imagine, again, going back to our public speaking opportunity, the manager you connected with would like to introduce you to someone else within their organization. If it's an email, that's easy. I could forward your email, CC you, and say, Jane, I'd like to speak with Terry. We discussed this over lunch. Could you please take it from here? Imagine you communicated over LinkedIn. There is no way that manager could forward that message and CC you. It becomes extremely complicated. So LinkedIn has shown you the name of the person you want to reach out to, but you don't have to stay in the platform all the time. You can leave and move to something that's more comfortable and easy and asynchronous, because you can reply when you'd like, and if our time zone is different, then I'm not stressed about anything else.
Nice. I like that. Especially for speaking opportunities. I could see a lot of potential there, a lot of possibility. Now, what kind of content should we be posting on LinkedIn? Should we be posting more videos? Should we be linking them to, well, I'm just going to be selfish and use my own example. I typically just post my podcast there because I don't know what else to talk about there. So I'll post links to my podcast. Is that a good use of LinkedIn, or should you stay more organically in the app and creating posts? Like, what does LinkedIn like?
What does Terry like? I'm sorry to get back to this, because LinkedIn can digest anything we'd like. But let's go back to the first question, like who's our ideal reader? If our ideal reader is an event organizer, then maybe we should curate the 20% of podcast episode dealing with public speaking or speaking confidently or something that deal with public speaking or even corporate environments.
Okay.
And what I found is that the content that tends to work best for most of us is top of funnel educational content.
Okay.
If we go back to the dilemmas of someone considering launching a podcast, then you know by heart the questions they're likely to ask themselves. How do I start? Where do I find the guests? Is my mic good enough? How do I edit this? So you position yourself as an expert in one or many of those entry-level questions, and you show them simply the way to move from point A to point B. And when they see the light, you tell them, you know what, there's a whole C and D. Let's go to that gated content, or let's schedule a discovery call, or let's move. But you have to serve first. You have to help them become more confident, and then their questions would be even more interesting. So top of funnel, educational content that is not salesy is the content that's easiest for you to share.
Okay.
Think of it as FAQ for people who have never recorded podcasts before.
Okay.
So you can basically dictate or write a one-pager or a PDF in less than 2 hours. And that could be a great lead magnet that you would distribute through, a series of YouTube shorts, each only 20 seconds. I might discover the third short. I might discover number 5. And then I would go to your website and then I would say, I'm ready now. And I would feel that I know you a bit better because I watched your videos and I decided that your tone and your professionalism resonates with me.
Okay. So like say those YouTube shorts, like you mentioned, and then sharing those shorts into LinkedIn, would that be the way to go?
Part of your shorts may educate your ideal reader.
Okay.
Instead of having, dozens of shorts or dozens of content pieces on LinkedIn, I will try to find, say, if we go back to the 10 minutes, once a week, what's the single most valuable piece of content you would like to share with your ideal audience?
Okay.
And I don't mean creating new content. I mean basically identifying the right content you already produce, not for the sake of LinkedIn. And my guess is that 99% of your audience have never watched that video or have never read that blog post or have never listened to that episode. So show them and educate them.
Okay. How many posts would be ideal for LinkedIn? Like, let's say we're ready to go all in 100%. We want to grow our best connected network and really make a presence on LinkedIn. What would the ultimate look like?
I'm not sure I can give you a number, not because I don't want to, but because if let's put it like this. Most of our network is not interested in seeing too much of our content.
Okay.
Now, you may be an exception to this, but for most of our listeners, if I discover the same sort of content coming from John, then by the 5th time I see it, I know what that person is going to share, and I sort of become blind to it. Right. I don't engage, I don't dwell, I don't like, I don't repost, I don't comment, I do anything. I basically remove that content from what I see. And our network is important. If I'm alienated or I don't like seeing that number of shares, then maybe you got an additional 2 people seeing that, but you might have hurt your relationship with one person who could mean a 20% increase in your turnover for 2025.
Okay.
There's no number you need to stick to. if you produce a lot of high quality content, you may feel that you want to post a lot. But if creating content is something that you only do once a quarter will be good.
Wow. Okay. And then how about, I keep seeing these articles on LinkedIn that people contribute to. I don't know what they're called, but they contribute to them. I've contributed to a couple to kind of test it out. Is that something we should be spending a little bit of our time doing? Is that worthwhile?
LinkedIn has played with collaborative articles for some time now, and one of the speculation is that it's basically training LinkedIn's AI with content that we provide to the machine.
Oh,
But regardless of that, I would ask, is what LinkedIn asks me relevant for my expertise? And many people will see that they got tagged for all sorts of things they never want to be associated with. However, if you do find, your exact niche, then it would make a lot more sense to associate yourself, and it would be easy for you to produce high quality content, to write 2 paragraphs and do that. But basically, I would say saying no is more important than saying yes, because it would take you a lot of time and it would dilute your efforts. You would write about something that you're not really, it's not part of your brand, and it could confuse your own network.
right. Right. The ones that I have contributed to have all been around public speaking and communication. So those have been like niche appropriate to me. But what I find really interesting is that when I go into LinkedIn, those notifications where I'll see like David, like a connection of mine, he contributes to a lot of them. So it'll be like, David's contributed to this, David's contributed to that. And that just seems to draw my eye really quickly. So that's why I was wondering if that's worthwhile, because I always notice those right away and see like, I'm curious what he said on that. So
have you gone as far as actually reading David's 5th contribution to collaborative article?
the 5th one? I don't know if I could say the 5th. I don't know if, good point. I would say I read the first few and now I just noticed the notification. Really good point.
Fine. So let's just say that if people only notice one collaborative article of yours and it's about your expertise, public speaking, then fine. If number 2 is about something that's not part of your niche, you don't have to collaborate on it. You don't have to contribute. You need to be able to say no.
Okay, good to know. What about writing our own articles on LinkedIn? I used to do that like years ago. I got really into that, and then I stopped. I just stopped. Is that still a worthwhile thing to be doing on LinkedIn, is to write an article, or should we stick more to shorter posts and sharing our other content?
It's a great question. I would try to ask about the thought lead. To what extent would you like to be known, or is thought leadership in your niche important to you? And writing LinkedIn articles, what LinkedIn calls articles, is maybe a valuable asset that you would share on LinkedIn, but it would have to be deeper. In other words, the shelf life of the article must be at least 12 months on. So it cannot be, yesterday I went to that event and it was amazing. This would be a good post. You could highlight, the speaker, something like that. But what are the 10 important lessons I learned from producing over 100 podcast episodes, and how could you learn from my mistakes?
Oh, I'm going to write that one. I like that.
Because this would be basically, it's not time sensitive.
Yeah.
It's not, on Amazon, there's now you can grab that mic for, $20 less. It would be something that has a long shelf life, and you could feel comfortable showing it to people down the road in 12 months. And the questions and the dilemmas would often be the same as people ask themselves today.
Okay. And now how about our profiles? How do we optimize our profiles, our descriptions? I know it's something I've changed many times in the past, trying to figure out what are the right words I should use. How do I communicate who I am and what I do. Any tips for that? How do we write our profiles?
I would actually advise the listeners to visit your profile, because this would be the simplest way to show important elements that we have on our profile. So let's mention a few.
Awesome.
When we visit your profile, we see a banner, and the banner is of you speaking. In other words, without even reading or scrolling, public speaking is sort of burnt or associated with you, Terry, before I even start to see or scroll. Investing time in a banner is one of the simplest actions our listeners and people who watch this could perform. Find a banner or create a banner that resonates with you and with your audience. So
Okay.
if someone is not a public speaker and someone is their specialty is mental health for XYZ, then find a way to show that through our banners. Make sure that our profile photo is professional, a headshot, looking straight into the camera and smiling. That's excellent.
Perfect.
I could recognize you in this call just thanks to that photo. And then we can go into the headline. The default headline for most people would be, LinkedIn would say, NLP trainer Terry Holland, CO. But you tweaked your own headline and you made it more interesting for the reader. Because let me read it aloud. It says, helping leaders to get the confidence to stand out, be seen, and share their message and expertise. Mind performance coach, podcast host, keynote speaker. What's interesting for us is what you wrote in the headline. Because if I'm not a leader, I don't want to stand out and I feel I'm way overconfident, then maybe I should disqualify myself.
Yeah.
If on the other hand, I struggle with confidence, but I do have a message I want to other people to learn about, then I would either go and visit your profile or scroll down to discover how Terry could possibly help me. And maybe one last element we could mention is the featured section that we see on your profile. That's a great way to highlight links. It could be a podcast episode, it could be a TED Talk, it could be a video, it could be a screenshot. And this is something that visually attracts our eye. And we see that before even scrolling to see the experience section. So I'll only stick to the top part. Banner, go to Terry Holland's profile and look at the banner. Make sure your profile photo is as professional as Terry's, and if you could, invest or try to write a headline that would speak directly to your audience. You will get bonus points if you also manage to add featured section.
I wasn't sure about my banner because I go back and forth between thinking that it should be more of a graphic designed banner with words on it of what I do and so I flip back and forth many times between the one that is on there now and then having something that's more just descriptive.
You could play with that. In 6 months' time, you could change that, or in 3 months' time, you can change that. The limit is really creativity.
Okay. Well, that's good to know too. How much of our content on LinkedIn should be personal? I've heard recently that there's a trend on LinkedIn of sharing a little bit more of personal life, if you're going on vacation, or a little bit about you behind the scenes. I've never used it that way myself. I always keep it strictly business, but is there a place in LinkedIn for us to be sharing a little bit of an insight into our day-to-day personal lives?
So the answer would really depend on you. In other words, some people would prefer a root canal and not sharing something personal. and for those people, it doesn't make sense to share anything personal, whereas other people would be a lot more extroverted than you. So for them, it would be basically 100% personal. And the
Okay.
3 questions I think I would ask is, one, do you, Terry, like it? Okay,
Mm,
when you think about sharing something personal, are you okay with that? Or do you do it because you think it would give you extra points for whatever? If you're happy with it, then
right.
fine, we can ask a second question. And the second question would be about people we're connected with. So people you serve, when they
Okay.
see that you share that, would they nod and say, yes, these are Terry's words. That reminds me of the way she helped me improve my confidence in the boardroom? Or
Hmm.
would they look and say, hey, that sounds weird. What was Terry thinking? We
Mm,
want number one. So, A, do we feel good about it? Is it natural for us? And
yeah.
second question, do people who know us well recognize us through that decision? And lastly, would the people we're interested in, people who consider launching podcasts or event organizers or anyone you define as your ideal client, if they were hesitant about reaching out to you, say for that speaking engagement, and they see that last piece of content you shared,
Yeah.
Terry, would that make them more likely to want to speak with you? Is it neutral, or would that turn them away? And you know the answers to
Oh,
all 3
yeah.
questions.
Okay. I like that. And I like that you had that image. So for those of you listening to the audio podcast, um, you need to go to YouTube to see it. But that image was really helpful for me to see, okay, look at these 3 areas. Very helpful. Anything is that we should be avoiding on LinkedIn, like just complete, like do not do this, bad practices, mistakes that you see people making that we should just stay clear of.
Would that would that actually be something we would do pre-LinkedIn or not? In other words,
Oh,
when you meet someone in a conference, you usually chat with them a bit before taking it to the next level.
hmm,
But you mentioned spamming. So
yeah,
spamming happens because it's very easy for people to basically dump 10,000 messages on us. But for most people who do that, that hurts their brand because you don't want to be associated with a spammer. You don't want to be associated with that sort of practice.
right.
So before you perform that action, just switch places and think of it as the other person. Going back again to Bob Burg, you
Yeah.
interviewed Bob. One of many of Bob's rules is about referrals and helping
Hmm.
other people.
Yeah.
Imagine again, it would take me more time to ask someone to introduce me to you. And it would take me less time to send you a boilerplate cookie cutter saying, Terry, we have exactly what you need. We've never spoken before, but I'm sure you're interested in XYZ.
Hmm.
Doing it right may means you need to spend a bit more time reading, researching, writing, shortening, editing, finding the right person to be the messenger to make the introduction. But usually, it would
Yeah.
mean we would have a more meaningful conversation. So in the long run, you have clients who are happy working with you and you don't have to spam.
I like how you framed that. Like, would you do it before LinkedIn? Because I think I see that on all social media platforms. People rush to like trying to get the sale without ever building a connection or a relationship. And you're right. We don't do that in person. You would never go up to someone at a conference and say, hey, buy my thing. You need to buy this without having a
And marry
dialogue.
me, please.
And yeah, exactly. It's like dating, right? Like you don't propose on the first date. That'd be lunacy. Okay. So is it worth it? Let's talk about premium memberships on LinkedIn. Is it worth it to invest in a premium membership or I forget what it's called, but there's the sales version of it and there's different, is, are those worth it?
The answer is no,
Okay.
especially if your network is the best connected.
Okay.
Why is that? Because if you learn to perform advanced searches on LinkedIn, you could perform them, say, once a month. You take 5 minutes and you find your ideal prospect just one every week. and you focus on secondary contacts, people with whom you share one mutual connection, and you reach out to that person. It's old school. It's
Yeah.
pre-LinkedIn, if you like. But remember, the secret is to remember when to leave the platform. So you discovered Mrs. Prospect. You notice that the name of the mutual connection is John Doe, and now you leave the platform. You communicate old school with your mutual connection. You ask how they've been, and then you ask, well, do you know that lady well enough to introduce me? And in the long run, it makes a lot more sense. And premium is basically a pyramid to spam. You don't have to use it if you're best connected. You can see who visited your profile without paying. You don't have to send a ton of emails. You don't have you do have to invest a bit of time.
Okay.
But paying for a premium account would only make sense once you, Terry, have reached a threshold of, I can no longer stand being on LinkedIn just for 10 minutes a week. I want to be 24/7 on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Then it could be worth your while to actually purchase a premium account. But if you're occasional user, you don't have to buy into that.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I know I've had a premium account in the past, off and on, and then I cancel it because I'm like, I'm not really benefiting from this because I'm not using it. And then I get sucked into, I think it's FOMO. I get sucked into the, like, what am I missing out on here? I need to have and I like the little premium sticker that goes on your profile. I don't know, but it's FOMO. How about, I'm also curious to know what got you so into LinkedIn? What made you decide to focus on this as your expertise?
Pure chance. I would have liked to tell you a Disney tale about, me growing up as a teenager, knowing that I would want to own LinkedIn. But back in 2004, early 2004, I got an invitation from someone I trusted. And Facebook was not, and so the whole concept of social was inexistent, but I trusted that person enough to check it out. And 2 years later, I was delivering networking lectures, and I mentioned LinkedIn for 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, maybe it was half of the conference. And at one point, I just decided to specialize. Friends asking me to come and train their Salesforce or the organization, and I'm happy I specialized. Because still LinkedIn is sort of the adult playground where it's more business oriented, and you could live without sharing the fettuccine or your cat, and it will still make a lot of success.
Oh, I love that. 2004, I don't think I even knew about LinkedIn until like probably 2010, 2011. So you were in there early.
Thank you very much. Right now, as we speak, thousands of people have joined LinkedIn since we started this very conversation, Terry. Each second, according to LinkedIn statistics, 3 people sign up.
Wow.
Most of the growth is outside of North America, and right now it's close to 1 billion members, including most decision makers in all Fortune 2000 companies.
Okay. So really, it is the place to be. I mean, I've been spending, like I mentioned Instagram earlier, that's where I spend most of my time on social media because it's fun. But I can definitely see through this conversation that to connect with the decision makers and connect with people who can really help me, say, move my business forward, LinkedIn is the place to be. So you've convinced me. You've convinced me, Daniel. I'm converted. I'm not giving up Instagram, but I'm going to spend some more time and focus on LinkedIn.
There's a place for everything in you. You could play with Instagram because it's fun, and then for 10 minutes investing in your marketing in a long-term way, and it would complement each other.
I think I like that. That's a great idea. So if people want to connect with you and they want to learn more about LinkedIn, they want to learn more about what you offer, what's the best place for them to go?
Thank you very much. DanielAlfon.com is the place to go.
Perfect. And that'll, of course, be in the show notes. And I'll put your LinkedIn there as well if you want.
Thank you very much.
Of course, they're going to want to go see like what you do because that's, how you set up your profile. That'll be Be very worthwhile to look at. Now I have some rapid fire questions for you if you're up for it.
Let's try.
Let's try? Okay. What's your favorite book?
Jeffrey Gitomer's The Sales Bible.
Oh, I haven't read that one.
It makes me think every time I read.
Nice. I'm going to put that on my list. What's your favorite food?
It would be some kind of pasta that my daughter makes, probably fettuccine alfredo or something like that.
Nice, but you're not posting on your LinkedIn, right? You're not sharing
No, no. Maybe one day I would give a lecture to, I don't know, pasta manufacturers, but otherwise, no, I don't see that happening very soon.
Fair enough. What's your biggest pet peeve?
I have too many to choose from. I'll pass.
Fair enough. Who inspires you?
Increasingly, my family and our kids.
Nice.
So right now, they're grown-ups and they're making decisions of grown-ups, and it's so refreshing to think back of the time, you know, you helped them deal with all sorts of things they dealt with when we were very young, and now it's success to see that they've become so independent. They know they come back and consult you, not because they have to.
I love that. What are 3 things you would take with you to a deserted island?
Yeah. I'll try to take a music player and
Nice.
probably maybe a pen and a notebook.
Great. Who's a celebrity you'd like to have dinner with, dead or alive?
Bob Dylan.
Oh, great choice. And your go-to karaoke song?
So it would be a song by The Who, either Love Reign Over Me or Who's Next or like one of the Who songs.
And any final thoughts that you would like to leave the audience with today?
I know we discussed LinkedIn extensively, and both of us are now converted, but I think there is something that's even more important than LinkedIn, and that's networking. So if you could do one thing, it would be to ask yourself, what's the best way you could keep in touch with people you know before you need them? I was listening to your episode about how to tackle setback, and you mentioned resilience, and you said the time to build your resilience is not when you're down in the dumps. You have to cultivate it earlier. I would say that for networking, it's the same thing. You build your network hoping you would never have to use it, but if there comes a time and you need to reach out to those people, don't be that person who only reaches out to you once they need something for it. Right.
That is great advice. Thank you so much, Daniel. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm converted. I will be on LinkedIn. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Terry. It's a pleasure to be with you.